Hello, my absolutely brilliant astrology soulmates, and welcome to your full moon in Libra video. Now, the full moon is going down April 12th of 2025, so just at 23 degrees of Libra. And let me tell you what, this lunation is packed, not only emotionally, spiritually, but energetically. So it's not just going to end up being about relationships, but this particular lunation is also going to be about your healing, your sovereignty, and your relationship with balance and rest itself. So before we jump in, there's going to be timestamps in the description box down below because there are several sections that I am talking about. As well, there's a link to the blog in the description box down below where you can break this down for your individual chart by house, because the best astrology is your astrology. So you want to break it down and see what house 23 degrees of Libra is at for your particular chart. And for those of you in my beginner transits class, this is a great time to chart this transit, especially with your homework this week, okay? All right, friends, if you have not jumped in and taken advantage of the Venus Reset program being on sale, that is also in the description box down below. I would love to see your new relationship with rest, with ease. Libra is ruled by Venus, which is heavy in the business of stress reduction. So how is consciously taking your relationship with rest and stress reduction a part of how you're living right now? Let's jump in because, listen, I have a lot to say. There is a lot going on in this lunation, okay? So let's start with the basics. First and foremost, you're going to have two main massive aspects that are going to be a part of this lunation, and that is there's a yod and there is a T-square. So this tells us that there is some uncomfortability, some tension that is happening in here, but there are also some really specific questions that are being asked. The other thing we're going to move into is that the lunation happens in a lunar family, which you can see the dates over here. So we're going to be backing up to look at stuff that happened in your life October 14th of 2023. So as you're listening to this, and you're kind of getting an idea of how this is shaping and unfolding, think about these times in your life, because this is your perfect cycle to go back in your chart and see the work that you've done and really breathe this into your personal astrology, okay? So one of the first things that we see here at this full moon is that we've got the full moon happening here in Libra at 23 degrees of Libra, directly opposing the Sun and Chiron here, because they're both at 23 degrees as well. Now, as those are already forming, that is our aspect that tells us that we are in a full moon. When the sun and the moon are in opposition, the luminaries are pulling in two different directions. My external drives to do, to be, to show up, right? Very external, is in opposition to what's happening for me internally. So there is a conversation here of, probably a person. Oppositions in terms of an aspect tend to be relational in general. We're trying to get two things to balance out, or we're trying to get someone or something to be the way we want it to be so that we can be comfortable. And it's just not possible. We need to find the place where these two come together at this sweet spot in the middle. And it's an integration of this opposition instead of a continual pulling towards one side or the other. Now, when we look at this awesome aspect that is being formed, we can see that the moon and the sun also form this T-square to Mars, who's up here in Cancer. Okay, so this is a tension. It's a tension. Now, Mars happens to be in the sign that is ruled by the moon herself. So listen, there's a lot going on here. This is not going to be a quiet lunation. Libra wants peace, harmony, and connection. But Chiron, Aries, Mars, they're going, yeah, but at what cost, right? At what cost? Because this opposition is highlighting the imbalance between the self and others, between independence and compromise, and most importantly, the pain of losing ourselves just to keep some kind of emotional peace. But when we see this T-square happening, it's trying to get all of this emotional expression out. So it's going to express itself out of this Mars. It's going to add pressure. So the emotional reactions, they come from not just having a reaction to something that's current and present, but they may come from really deep memories, places we have had to protect ourselves emotionally, places where we've needed to navigate some kind of attachment style, whether that's abandonment, places that come from something that is even deeper. You know, we're talking about digging into our ancestry, into our lineage, stories that we've been living off of, right? That we have been protecting ourselves from. So this is a massive amount of energy between this opposition of myself and others that is trying to find a way to get out, and it's going to get out in this Martian energy. Now, one of the things I do want to say is two things, really. First of all, Mars in Cancer here is now back in bounds while it's squaring and squaring this moon and the sun. And this is a big deal because as Mars is here and it's back in bounds, when it was out of bounds, it brought just unfiltered emotional responses and reactivity. Our protection instincts and mechanisms and behaviors were firing at full force. There was this like fierce need to defend myself, defend my emotional space. And for some people, honestly, it was so much energy that it was like a complete emotional shutdown, right? I don't know what to do. I feel powerless. I'm exhausted. My nervous system is zapped from indecision. But now that Mars is back in bounds, that fiery Mars energy, even in Cancer, is a bit more focused because what we got to do was keep the gift of real emotional strategies that you created while Mars was out of bounds, because these are not a part of your old playbook. You have not had these before. As Mars goes out of bounds, necessity put us in a position where we were able to think outside of our box, create strategies outside of our box that are necessities. They are born in a time where we feel like I'm here for survival. But now they become strategies in support of your sacred growth. And these are going to be strategies that are around nurturing, safety, boundaries, joy. Remember, we had Mars also in Leo, so there's a story of joy. What makes my life easy? What makes it joyful, playful? And that square, as it's coming here, it's emotional decision making. Right? So as these two are shining light on where you need to pivot and let go of some old things and commit to a new road, the new road is here at the Mars. Do you protect your peace? Do you continue to defend, old stories, or do you protect your peace, confront the truth of what is creating the lack of security for you there, and then you're able to take different actions and different strategies in that space? It's a massive question as we're seeing that come up. So just take a minute as you're even just listening to this and think about what I'm saying to you, because what does it mean? I mean, Mars as the apex point, this is a pressure point. There's an intense energy that wants to express, it wants to erupt, it wants to be released. So oftentimes when you're thinking about it and you dive back in, you can even look back in Mars's retrograde cycle, go back into October of 2024, where we really started to see Mars get into the cycle. What was coming up for you that was like, it was protective, it was ancestral, it was emotional, it was around home, safety, where I belong, my sense of belonging. This is going to be a part of the story that continues to show up here. Now we've got another really expressive energy up on our table. We have got a yod, and I think that this is just immaculate. So a yod is going to be two quincunx energies and a sextile. Now the sextile energy lives here. These two planets are talking to each other and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. I get how you want to do business. We can make an opportunity. Because the moon is like, I'm trying to express something. Uranus is like, I don't understand how you're trying to get me to do that. And that's because Uranus is in an earth energy here in Taurus, and we've got the moon in an air energy. So they don't quite understand each other. So they're having to kind of figure it out. And that's what a quincunx does. It means lots and lots and lots of adjustment because I don't quite understand how you're trying to get me to do this. Now, Saturn is doing the same thing. Saturn and Venus are in conjunction over here. The node is here too. We're going to talk about this whole Pisces stellium. But they're also in water, and this water is trying to get the details from the air. And it's like, I don't understand how you would like me to get that done, right? So the moon sends information to both of those planets, and they're like, I have no idea what you're asking me to do. But these two planets do understand each other. So they're like, okay, well, let's try what we know how to do. We're going to try and translate what air energy moon is saying to us, and we'll shoot it back over there and see what happens. So first of all, the Yod is called the finger of God aspect. It's a pretty rare karmic alignment, and it points to an emotional choice that is going to change everything. Okay? And just for the learning purpose, remember that the Yod is the sextile with two quincunx energies. Now, in the conversation here, where we have Saturn and Venus in Pisces, this combination right here, it's about mature, compassionate boundaries. But this is strong. This is strong. This is at these last couple degrees when we're getting towards that 29 degree. This is solid, okay? Uranus also here at 25 degrees of Taurus. This is like, yes, we need to shake up things. We're going to shake up the resources. We're going to shake up and disrupt the pattern, but it's solid. This is not coming from an immature place at all. And now the moon, as they've had this conversation, the moon here, the point of the Yod saying, what are you still emotionally adjusting to that's not serving our soul anymore, right? Because we're going to pivot here. It's going to ask you to step into a brand new kind of lunar activity, emotional intelligence. And it is one that disrupts any of the patterns of codependence, overgiving, emotional manipulation, even if it's subtle, even if it's unconscious, okay? If it's subconscious, wherever the consciousness is, it is asking for a disruption of that. So I just want you to know, as you're experiencing this, if you're feeling the sense of you don't quite have it integrated just yet, that this would be normal, but these are the questions that are coming up. And again, it's going to be in response to what we're going to see in this lunar cycle that started for you here. Now let's address for just a moment this Pisces stellium, because we cannot leave out that these planets are very closely tied in, even looking at this Yod. But because it's a strong Pisces stellium, Venus, Saturn, North Node, and Mercury, who's just direct. And just outside of that as well, Neptune has just freshly exited this vibration right here from this dreamy Pisces energy and has popped into Aries. So there's just an imprint, because Neptune is also not fully done with Pisces yet as well. So there is this memory that kind of sits here in this particular energy. But this is a wash of soul memory. That's the way I was seeing it, is like your soul memory is like getting a little scrub right now. So it's bringing dreams, it's bringing grief, it's bringing intuition, it's bringing a longing up with it. And now that Mercury is direct, we're gaining a bit of clarity on something that was confusing in that space, or maybe it was blurred, or it was so spiritualized that it wasn't actually practical, things like that. So as we're seeing this stellium come to its power now, you might be waking up with actually waking up, like waking up in the middle of the night, waking up in the morning, waking up in the middle of the day, where you're like coming to truths that only come through your intuition. They only come through your body. They only come through your dreams. They only come through your emotional breakdowns. This is Pisces, and it softens us just enough to change everything. It lets us feel that space of, I have no control, just enough to change absolutely everything, right? Okay, we've got some other soft aspects here that we can see that we can work with. This aspect here, we've got a soft and applying air trine happening between the moon and Jupiter. So this is what I would like to call softening grace. It's like grace is available. It's not out of stock and it'll be back soon. Grace is available. I was taught, and my business name, Stormie Grace, comes from what my teachers taught me. And they taught me that grace is the slack the universe cuts us for being assholes. And I need a lot of grace, and I need to give a lot of grace to people. So as there's this softening grace in the sky here, Jupiter is going to continue to expand whatever it touches. And in Gemini, it gives us the words, the questions, and the breath to move us forward. This aspect right here, amidst what we're experiencing, where we are still becoming, so we don't have this down necessarily, we're still growing into it. I'm getting emotional even saying this. This aspect, I think, is our most brilliant outlet, because it's the invitation of this lunation to write it out, think it out, talk it out. Don't bottle. The bottle is going to shoot through your apex points in ways that you may not love, but also apex points will bring changes, okay? So let's talk about this lunar story that's going on. So first and foremost, when we go back into your life, pull up your Google Calendar, pull up your whatever you keep track of your life, go back to October 14th of 2023. Now, this is when we had a new moon solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. So this was a big one. The new moon shifted us to a different timeline. Okay, we got on a new track, absolutely. So what was happening at 21 degrees of Libra in your chart? Because this is where you started the story, but you were just planting your seeds of intention. You were like, okay, I want to bring more visibly, and I want to bring more honestly balance to my life, to my relationships. You might even be going, what's going on with my self-worth? What's happening for me around my social values? What's happening with me that I am not allowing myself to rest, or I feel guilty when I rest? What's going on with me that I feel a call towards actually being a little bit more soft? I want more ease. I'm craving more ease. And so now, as you've planted that, then we get to July 13th of 2024. And what we see here is that it started to come to presence. We started to see it. It became visible, where it's like, oh, okay, well, now wait a minute. I have already been working on this. I planted the seeds of intention, but now they're starting to become more visible. I can see it. I can see the tangible results of what's going on, because at that time you were building. You were in absolute 100% building mode. You were making it happen. Now, people, places, and things at that time would have started to fall out of your life like crazy, because you were in action moving things forward. The universe was weeding your garden, taking away people, places, and things, or making it absolutely apparent that you had got to take your claws out of what it was trying to take out of your life, because it was stressing you out. It was shooting your cortisol through the roof. It was making you question yourself. It was making you go, well, now wait a minute. Do I sacrifice my peace? Is this compromise, or is this a sacrifice of my peace and my softness and my Venusian energy at whatever cost? That's a big question as we look back into our lives. So things would have started to change right here. Now, as we have come here to this April 13th full moon at 23 of Libra, now we're in the space where, first of all, celebrate whatever you did, whatever you worked on, especially emotionally. Between October until now, you built something. You built something. A piece of you has been healed. A piece of you has been changed. A piece of you has matured and has softened. And you built something here. So I really want you to take a minute to celebrate where you've built some balance, or you at least became so massively aware of some kind of imbalance of overgiving or overdoing that today you're like, okay, I might not have perfected this thing and I'm sleeping like a baby and feeling soft and feminine and free, but you do have a different perspective. Now what's happening is that we need to end, acknowledge, or adjust. All the lights are on. Which things are still valuable to you? Which emotional lessons are still valuable to you that you are going to continue to learn? Because it's not all of them. It's not all of them. It's not just fix you every month. That is not the theme here. The theme is you've learned something. So what gets off the table And then which people, places, things, and lessons are you going to commit to continue to go down the road with? Because you are still building. You do still have to answer these questions of your balance in your relationships and what's going on, how you're moving, what is your relationships are acting as that cosmic invitation to not only rebalance, but you've got to do it with the mirror of another source that emotionally stimulates you and gets you into a position of a wake-up call to end an emotional cycle that's no longer honoring who you are and who you are becoming. It's massive. It is massive. And I think it's one of the biggest invitations that you are aware of at this point, that you're allowed to choose peace that doesn't cost you your truth, and vice versa. You are allowed to choose truth that doesn't cost you your peace. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, now as we're going to wrap up that cycle, it's going to be January 10th of 2026 when we have the last quarter moon in Libra. And this is when the lesson here, it's completed. Okay, you built it, you worked it out, whichever house this is happening in for you, likely you're going to see a lot of new direction that today, when you get to January, you're going to be like, that's obvious. That is so obvious. If I continued doing that, that would be out of balance. It's almost like you're set up for such success that you're like, that's crazy. How was I doing that all of that time? So one of the things I want to just offer you here to consider is to remember in everything that we're looking at here, while this is a very active and pretty tense lunation, we are held here in this dance of so much of the Pisces, Aries energy. Certainly Pisces, the North Node is here pulling us down. It's pulling us this direction. The ruling planet of this lunation also being part of this stellium, that we are wrapped in that Pisces stellium. The wisdom of what Pisces has to offer is holding us. It's literally holding us, saying, integrate, soften, shed, let it go. You don't need that anymore. Okay, what have you learned from that? Give it to me. The veil is thin. You've already learned that lesson. Now, what are you going to do with it? You're going to keep holding it and carrying it around, or are you ready to let it go and we can resume the party on better terms? So it is a full moon of awakening, not just in our relationship with others, but in our relationship with ourselves. So I would highly encourage and invite you to speak what's been unspoken, but remembering that there are other people on the other side of the words that you are going to be delivering, right? It says so much about you if you need to say what needs to be said, but you do it in a way that tears down another person to try to build you up. And maybe that's a part of your lesson base right now. Honor what hurts. Let discomfort reveal deeper balance than you've ever known. Don't mistake peacekeeping for peace. It's not. There's more available. This life has a place that will surprise and delight you if you let these lunations help restore you. Now, I was thinking about a couple things that I saw in the comment section down below that you guys had left under the previous Libra video, actually looking at other Libra lunations that were happening. And so some of you were asking for some examples, and I just want to provide you a couple of those, okay? So for some of you, depending on what house this is in your chart, and again, you can check it out by house in the blog, you may realize that you are having a boundary reset. You've been overcompensating, you've been enabling, you've been shrinking yourself in a relationship, you've been doing the most so that you feel like the most. But finally, you have to ask for help. You have to speak up. You have to step back. And this time, though, it's not hopefully out of anger. It's out of self-respect. It's out of a need for a connection with Venus, with Venusian energy, with rest, with softness. I've been thinking a lot about this, is that it's like when we're talking about these family dynamics and things that are going on, and a client gave me a really great example. She didn't mean to, but it was a really great example about how every year the whole family would get together and she'd do all of the Christmas things or Thanksgiving things, whatever the holiday things were, right? And before that, her parents did that. Her mom and her dad did that. And then she did that. And there was like this little generation just after her where her kids weren't really interested in doing that because they were like, it's absolutely exhausting. I would not care to engage with that, right? And it made me think about in my own family, how much is this beautiful tradition that we hand down to each other, you know, as a system of love, as keeping some kind of beautiful tradition going, and how much is other generations absolutely exhausting themselves at their own cost to make other people happy, right? Because what happens then when those generations or those people say, I don't want to do that anymore? Does somebody else go, oh, that's okay, I can chip in, I can help with that, and we can all do it together? Or does the Christmas and the Thanksgiving stop? This is one, I think, minor example. It's very Pluto and Aquarius to be thinking differently about some of these concepts we've been told and taught about, old stories, right? Because remember, this Aries energy, this Aries Chiron is going, yeah, no, good relationships, but at what cost? At what cost? Some of you, this maybe is coming up for you at work. You know, maybe you're needing to make a really emotional decision at work or in your work or your career. So if there's a situation in your career, or there's a situation, let's just even say in your public life, somewhere we see you publicly, and it pushes you, or it's been pushing kind of that emotional bandwidth that you have, and you're being asked to take on more. But you're realizing that your nervous system cannot handle it. You cannot do it. So you're being put in a position to decide, are you going to keep doing that, or are you going to make some kind of different decision? Or what decisions need to be made to give yourself a relationship with rest, with ease, with stress reduction? Sometimes, after a good cry, after a good scream, after a good pillow punching, or, you know, some kind of really deep surrender that happens, where we've had to just go to our edge, we have that breakdown, and then we have the breakthrough, and clarity comes. So for those of you who this is going to be your experience, you might have an emotional flood, and then suddenly, you know what needs to happen next. You're like, oh, it's right there. For you, that full moon could be this kind of release. But make no bones about it, we're going to be having a release at this particular full moon. Okay, my absolutely beautiful friends, jump in the description box down below, check out the blog, find out this full moon house by house for you and what's coming next, how you can look back at this in your cycles. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel and share this if you can. I would really, really love that. I am sending you softness. I am sending you truth. I am sending you strength as you travel through this particular lunation. All right, beautiful friends, I'll see you next time.